as an average.
This is a very similar story to mine. I mean,
that was gross. Not there.
The reason we wanted to get you on, as I said, we thought it would be a good podcast, but also we had a question from a listener of the week who was 16 years old and played off 11, and he said that, he wants to try and make it as a professional and get on tour and live out his dreams and stuff, which we tried to give him some good, like what we thought was good advice anyway. But I then, on the drive home after filming that and recording that podcast, I started thinking to myself, what is making it? What is making it as a golfer? Because obviously everybody's got different perceptions of what making it is. So, as I said, I went to school with you and I know you well enough, and I thought, well, in my eyes, you've made it because you played on the European Tour and you've played in the Open. So we thought, let's get you on the podcast. Let's hear that journey from you starting the game, whenever that was, right until that kind of pinnacle of playing in the Open, and then now that kind of next chapter, if you like, of coaching. And I think you can offer some really kind of insight and stories into what it is really like to be a professional golfer.
Yeah, well, I got into golf through my dad. He played, not to a great standard, but he was 9-10 handicap at Gathurst Golf Club. He always really pushed me to try and get into golf, but at the time I was probably 12 years old, and I would much prefer to go out on my bike with my friends, and didn't really get into it probably till I was about 14. And then by the time I was 14, I thought, I actually really enjoy this, and I started to choose golf over going out with my friends on a bike. And that's when I started to get better, certainly through the summer holidays, because that's when it seems like every junior improves a lot, because the golf is just ridiculous.
Were you one of those juniors that would get dropped off in the morning by your dad, get a couple of quid, get some chips, and we'll pick you up at 5 o'clock?
We used to almost have world records, see how many holes in a day we could do before dark.
Wow, can you remember your record?
No, but I remember some days it was 4 rounds of golf in a day, and then committee soon got upset with that and made it limited to 18 holes. But that was when I really started to get good, around 14. And then
give some, certainly for the young listeners, young golfers listening, what does that look like? What is good? Can you remember your first handicap? Can you remember what you were off when you were 15?
First handicap was 24 off memory. By the time I was probably, and that was when I was 12, but like I said, I didn't really have much interest in it then. By the time I was 14, I actually remember getting lower than my dad on, I think it was my 14th birthday. I got to 7 or 8 handicap, and I actually went lower than my dad at the time in handicap.
That must have been pretty special.
Yeah.
So you dropped from 24 down to single figures?
To 7, or I think it may have been 8
by
the time I was 14.
In how long?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then by the time I was 16, it was either one or scratch. So I think it was around 16 when I got to scratch.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what would you put that down to? Is that just, honestly looking back, is that natural ability? Was that coaching? Was that work ethic? What helped?
My dad certainly helped, around 12, 13, 14. But when I was 14, I started seeing a guy called Adrian Fryer, who you'll probably know.
We know Adrian.
Yeah.
Of course we do. It's Matt's dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt was only known as Adrian's son.
Adrian's son.
Matt didn't have a name. I didn't even know Matt's name for many years. I just knew him as Adrian's son.
Adrian's son. Well, Matt's dad, Adrian. He started teaching me when I was 14, and that's when I really started to progress and started to really improve. And
what got you seeing him? Was that reputation? Was that because you were nearby?
Used to always go to drive time, double tier driving range. There was it was one of one, wasn't it, at the time?
Was this Warrington?
Warrington, yeah. Banky train station.
I know it, yeah. Is it gone now?
It's gone now. It's houses.
Used to be a really cool go-kart track round there as well.
It's still there, that
Is
one.
it?
Yeah.
The one with the double tiers?
Yeah, yeah.
That
really
is good, that.
Yeah.
You've not been.
We need to go for a mate's day after this, don't we, and go go-karting?
Yeah, let's definitely do it. I'm up for that. But that was a special driving range because it was 2 tiers, so everybody used to go there. And then just got talking to Adrian one day, and before you know it, I was booked in for a lesson, and I saw him on and off for 12, 13 years.
Wow. That's crazy.
14 years maybe. It was a long time.
And were you seeing him all the time, every week, every 2 weeks?
Probably once a month at the start. But then certainly I started to, obviously as this story progresses, I started to see other coaches through England, Lancashire, So it wasn't just always Adrian, but Adrian was my main coach basically the
Wow.
whole time.
Do you think that helps to have a coach that kind of knows your game from young? Because like Rory with Michael Bannon has been his coach for forever. Do you think that does help that somebody knows you as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, golf lessons are funny because over a period of time you get rid of habits and then you gain new habits and then you're always working on different things. But he knew me very well. Obviously, over the phone during like golf events, I could ring him and say I'm doing this, and because he knew my swing so well, he'd generally tend to give you some wise information over the phone.
So at this point, you're what, 16-ish?
16-ish,
You're
yeah.
playing off scratch. Because I think I first knew you when I would have been about 11 and you would have been maybe 13. And I remember you being a good golfer.
Yeah.
But at that time, you were like you said, 14, let's say, you were like you said, off 7, which is really good. But I knew, remember Andy Butcher, obviously.
Yeah,
he was
Butcher.
probably better than you at the time, I
Yeah,
would
he was the
say.
best, yeah.
In our school, he was definitely the best. He was like scratch or 2 or something, whatever he was. He was like a school year older than you, I think, or maybe 2.
He was, yeah.
And you were just like one of the lads that was a good golfer. But I would have, without being rude, I would never said at the time this guy's going to play in the Open.
It's because I had other interests, really. I didn't just dedicate myself to golf.
And then that switch into being more golf-centric and focused is when you really elevated and stuff.
Yeah, when it became like my one sport and just really get my head down, that was when I started to improve the most.
When did you think in this timeline so far, when did you think golf could be where I pursue? That could be my career?
Probably about 16,
Okay.
15, 16,
And was
around
this
that
because
age.
you obviously got down to scratch? There probably wasn't many people, certainly in the local area, who's off 16 and scratch. You probably started to get for Lancashire trials,
Lancashire
and
juniors,
England trials. And did you feel like the hype was encouraging you to get to there? Like the members at your golf club going, "Oh my God, James, you're off scratch." Was that part of the encouragement, or did you have this vision already?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that encouraged me, but I liked winning and being the best, and it just made me like thrive, basically.
Did you win a lot when you were younger?
As a junior, maybe like 14, 15, not so much, but then I started to win more when I was 15, 16, 17, started certainly winning a lot, but it just loved winning, basically.
That's good.
So you left school at 16.
Yep.
And then what was the next step for you then?
Myesco College,
Okay.
same as Rick.
Yeah, following the footsteps.
Yep.
Because you were 2 years younger than me, aren't you?
Yes.
So you
You
went
were
to-
leaving. No, you were, sorry. Did you stay on?
No, I only did 2 years.
2 years.
And then I ended up getting a job.
Yeah.
So I went there with the intention of doing 5 years.
Right.
That was my plan. Because after the 5 years, you get a degree in golf and you start doing your PGA. But I thought, well, hold on. If I do 5 years and then do my PGA, that's going to be 8 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
I'm
isn't
20.
it?
I'll be 20. So I was in college when I was 16 to 18. I feel like those years for me were the best years of my
Yeah.
life, because I felt like I had a great time being able to, at a golf college. I kind of got my what's the right word? My university days done.
Explain.
Then. I went out a lot.
Yeah,
I drank
snap.
a lot. I went out a lot, and I certainly kind of got that rebellious side out of me early. I felt so that when I was 18, I felt like, okay, I've kind of done that now. I'm ready for a job. So you did 16 at Myesco College.
Yeah, I went to Myesco when I was
2 years?
16. 2 years, yeah.
And-
Lots of drinking.
Lots of drinking. And because we've got a lot of mutual friends, obviously, Guy being one of them, Sam Mellor, Andy Carter, Peter Finch, people that we kind of surrounded ourselves in the golf industry. Certainly Sam Mellor, a good friend of mine who was in my year at Myesco. Kind of you grew up playing a bit of golf with him as well, didn't you?
He's a really good friend of mine now, yeah. So
And when I first started college, I was 16, as mentioned, and I was probably off about 6 or 7. And I remember going there thinking I was the boy, like thinking I was, here we go. My picture scene, Burberry was big. So I had a Burberry hat, I had a Burberry t-shirt with Burberry, like a Burberry collar and a Burberry button down bit at the bottom. And I went there thinking I was the boy. I was one of the best golfers in my college, in my school. One of the best golfers in my golf club, and I'm walking around there.
I can break 8, so you know.
suddenly I'll sit down in class and everyone's putting their hand. So what's everyone's handicap? And it's like, above 10, and a few hands go up, and high single figures. I'm thinking that's probably me. I'll put my hand up. I'm thinking not many people are putting their hand up here. Next stage, 5 and below, like half the class put their hand up. I was like, oh crap, I'm not that good. I'm not even close. Probably the best player in my class was like a lad called Jack Lynch, who was off probably scratch, maybe +1.
Right.
He was the best. Were you the best in your kind of form at 16 at my school college?
Well, similar story to that, really. I was the boy wearing pink pants and orange pants. Remember JL when
Yeah,
he
of course.
first brought those like
We had a full episode on it 2 weeks ago. Did you have the sweatbands?
No.
Sweatbands, visors.
I had visors.
Belt was the big one.
The
wasn't
belt,
it?
yeah.
That was the one.
Once you had the belt, you were the boy.
Yeah.
You had to be a single figure. You actually had to prove that you were single figures to buy a white belt over the counter. You couldn't buy a
There's
white
my
belt.
ID, sir.
You had to be under 25 and you had to be off single figures.
Definitely.
So you went there with the pink pants and the orange pants.
Yeah, but at the time it was kind of a throw up between me and Dave Corsby, who you probably know.
Okay, I know Dave, yeah. From Fleetwood.
Fleetwood, yeah. But I did actually pip him in the match play around this place at Worsley Marriott.
Did you?
And I won the individual, what was it called? Prospects Tour.
Prospects Tour, yeah.
Prospects Tour. And actually won that. And I set the record for the lowest average gross, I think, of 69.7.
Wow. So this
As
is
an average.
This is a very similar story to mine. I mean, this
No, that was gross, not net.
touche.
Rick,
touche.
you won the award for who tried the hardest, didn't you, Rick?
Well, it was funny.
Player of the Year.
You know, I texted you yesterday and said, "Is there any trophies that James has won?" Because you've won Lytham Trophy, haven't you,
Yep.
the big one?
Yeah.
And yesterday I was cleaning out my garage. 'Cause I've got anyway, and I found some trophies. I had a lot of runner-ups.
Yeah.
I had a couple of wins. I had about 6 most improved trophies, which
That's
isn't good, is it?
just most effort, basically.